Hello, I got a rather different beer review to do tonight. You're gonna get not just a beer review, you're gonna get two stories on how Bigfoot found me twice. Bigfoot found me not once, but twice. And they are true stories. And the name of this beer actually is Finding Bigfoot. I saw that this beer was $20 for these 4-pint cans. Normally I kind of, not because I can't afford it, it's just the principle of it, you know. But two things caught my eye. One, it's an Imperial Stout that I haven't had. Three things. It's a New York State Imperial Stout, upstate New York, that's where I live, that I haven't had. And the title and the beer can label right here. Finding Bigfoot. Well, that caught my eye because anybody that knows me knows that I have a Bigfoot encounter in Whitehall, New York. When I lived up there, worked up there a long time ago. Picture off. So I'm going to get to this beer and tell you what I think about it, and then I'm going to tell you not just about Finding Bigfoot, this Imperial Stout, but I'm going to tell you two stories on how Bigfoot found me twice. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not trying to be funny with this because this really happened. And you know, I don't expect most of you to believe me, but that's the problem. It's such an outrageous story that a lot of people don't believe me. But I'm telling you the truth, what happened, and you can think whatever you want. My family knows, you know, this story, and they also know that I'm not a liar and I'm not mentally insane or anything like that. At least they don't believe I am. I don't believe I am. So they believe me, and people that know me well believe me in person. Now, this is on the World Wide Web, on the YouTube. Yeah, you know, we're all learning to take what we hear on YouTube with a grain of salt. But I'm telling you, on my honor, whatever that's worth, but if you look at my channel, I think you'll get that I put a heavy emphasis on integrity and truth. So I'm going to tell you those stories when I get to this beer, and then I'm going to tell you, what I think of the beer as well. So Finding Bigfoot, Imperial Stout, 4-pint cans cost me $19.99, which I think it's a little steep, but $5 for a can of beer. That's an Imperial Stout. I guess that's reasonable, but you know, you'd pay a lot more than that at a bar for it, I guess. I haven't been to a bar in ages. But there's a can, and it's got Bigfoot on it. And to tell you the truth, it's pretty accurate to what I encountered in Whitehall in 1987. Except the eyes were glowing red on the one in Whitehall, and I'm not the only one to say that. Other people have seen it. So Finding Bigfoot is brewed by a upstart brewing company in southern New York, about 60, 70 miles from where I'm sitting south on the Pennsylvania border, Johnson City. They've got, is it Beer Tree Brewing? Beer Tree Brewing. And here's looks like a pretty nice place. Here's a couple of pictures off the web of that place. They've got two places. They've got they call it the farm, but it looks like a nice place to hang out in the summer. Probably have live music, you know, and bring your kids, play some games, try to have food and beer, and looks pretty nice. And yeah, I've never been there, but it looks like it would be nice to check out. And then they've got what they call the beer factory, which looks like where they brew the stuff. So they got a pretty big operation for an upstart brewing, Beer Tree Brewing. All right, so that's about them. And you can find them on the internet. You could also find them in person if you drive down there to Johnson City and look them up. Yeah. All right. Now I'm going to say something about this beer. First off, it's a fairly heavy hitter at 9% alcohol. And it's got 45 IBUs, which sounds about right personally for an Imperial Stout. The 9% and the 45 IBUs sounds like it's right on target. Now they didn't put this in any bourbon barrels. They didn't mix any cocoa or any of that stuff, vanilla beans or any of that stuff in with this, which I like. I don't like all those things. Sometimes they're not bad though, but I really like to have just a straight up stout like Guinness and other traditional stouts that are just barley, hops, and water. You know, different types of barley, toasted differently to give it its flavor and its color and appearance and darkness. But it's still barley. You know, how much they toast it, it'll make it dark for a dark beer and give it flavor and bitterness. And so nothing fancy with this going on. It's just barley, hops, and water. So I'm going to check this out, and then we'll get into my Bigfoot stories. I smell chocolate and coffee. Not very strong, but I am kind of plugged up still. So, and honestly, these candles kind of put out a little bit of smoke, honestly. I know I use them in my videos, but they can get kind of stuffy in here. Oh. Whew. Yeah, I smell chocolate, you know, chocolate, vanilla, and coffee. So let's have a look at this beer. Let me get rid of this doily. I'm going to tell you what, I've been waiting all week for this beer. And I can tell you how cold the beer is because it's been sitting outside. And it's been sitting outside all week. And right now it's 28 degrees Fahrenheit outside, so that's the temperature of this beer. Probably a little warmer because it's on my back porch. Well, that is dark indeed, folks. That is indeed dark. Dark indeed. Indeed dark. Oh, brown head, you can see it. Well, that filled this mug up pretty good. All right, I'm going to get this out of here so it's not under my nose. Oh, I can't smell it because of the candle, and I've still got some sinus issues going on. That's a very dark beer. Merry Christmas, by the way. As I'm making this, it's December 20th. Nice, pretty good head on it, actually. Almost a 2-finger head on it. It was originally about a 2-finger head. We'll see how long that sticks around. I like to put a picture. Hold on a second. That's better. I'm learning this. Kind of weird. What the hell would that be? What is that brown thing in my beer? Alright. It's a piece of wax from when I knocked the candle down. Well, good thing I fished that out. Alright, on to the beer. And then I'll tell you the stories of what I encountered. Bigfoot found me twice. And I've told a lot of people this story. In fact, I wrote a book. And, you know, you can think what you want. But I actually had somebody get hold of me because they had the same kind of experience. And they said my experience validated theirs. And they, you know, all right, so that's pretty good. Chocolate bitterness. It's got a bitter back taste to it. Sweet up front, bitter in the back. Smooth. Waxy. Can't really taste the alcohol in it. This is pretty good, honestly. Got a lot of character to it. Smooth too. Carbonation's pretty mellow, pretty easy going. Oh, that's very good. I've got another good beer. That's 3 good ones in a row I've reviewed on here. Yeah, it's very good. It's kind of sweet and creamy up front, and it's got a bitter after finish, but not so bitter that it's bad. It's nicely balanced. You get a balance between the bitterness and the sweetness. Oh yeah, that's good. Well, I'm going to get into my when Bigfoot found me. Well, I'm drinking Finding Bigfoot. That's why I paid 20 bucks for this. In 1987, I was an active duty training sergeant in Whitehall, New York. I'd never been there before, never been to that part of New York State, ever. And so I drove up there. I had a Jeep Wrangler and a guitar and clothes on my back and a sleeping bag. And I was an active duty training sergeant. I'd just gotten out of the 82nd Airborne. My first 4 years in the Army were in the 82nd Airborne Regular Army as a paratrooper, squad leader, machine gunner. We spent more than 6 months out of the year in the field. So being out in the woods, and I was also pretty young and in shape, pretty rugged, didn't bother me one bit. I got there, I figured I'd have to wait a couple weeks to get paid. I didn't have any money to speak of my own on hand, not much. And I had to look on a map to get there. I'd never heard of the town, never been in that part of New York State in my life at that point. Well, I went up there, and there's so much to this story. I'm just going to get to the Bigfoot part, but there's a lot leading up to it too. So I decided I was going to camp out. It was middle of the summer. It was a good job, and you know, I'll just live out in the woods. And the armory, I worked at the armory. Here's a picture of the armory. The armory's still there, but it's no longer. The guard unit that I was the active duty training sergeant for is no longer there. They disbanded that guard unit, reorganized something. So that's no longer an armory for a military unit, which had been one since like 1873, I think. And my office was in there. Okay, picture off. So the armory had a shower room in it, so I figured I'd live in the woods and I could shower up in the morning, you know, at the armory when I came to work, which is what I did. So I'm going to tell you where this happened, if anybody's actually trying to figure out, you know, if you're researching Bigfoot. This happened, I drove around kind of aimlessly, and I drove down this back road. It turns out it was Winters Road. Here's a map of that. Actually, I'll just I did a little presentation on this, where I found it, all right? Here's that video presentation on the first time Bigfoot found me, where it was at, where it happened. There's that. Okay, this is where Bigfoot first found me. Whitehall's Bigfoot found me here. And this is the first time. And I'll go over the second time after I go over this. So I was living out in the woods. I had a good job there as a training sergeant in their New York Army National Guard, which the armory's still there, but the guard unit's long gone. So they didn't pay me for 3 months, and I wound up bivouacking. I had a Jeep Wrangler, and it was summertime, and I was young, and I just figured I'd live out in the woods, and I did. So this creek here, Castle Creek, I was calling this area right here home. I'd drive in my Jeep and park it here, and there's a nice waterfall there, and it was kind of pleasant, boring really. And I lived there for about 2 months. And back then, this is 1987. There weren't any houses out there. There weren't many at all. So there wasn't anybody around or anything. So one day I got bored. It was a Saturday. And I started walking down, exploring the creek, going this way. And I had a shovel because I collect old bottles. And I thought maybe I could find an old bottle dump, and dig old bottles. And I followed this stream. And there was a bridge, really old stone bridge, right around here, roughly. Bridge, I don't know. Stone bridge, small one. There must have been, I have no idea. It was a really old stone bridge. It was almost buried, then. So I sat down on this bridge here, had a cigarette, and this area here was a swamp. Probably still is. And I'm sitting here on that bridge, and that's when I saw something that looked like a very large black ape coming through the brush. I mean, it was coming right at me. And it looked angry, honestly. I got that it was angry, very angry. It looked like it wanted to get at me pretty bad. And, I didn't see any glowing eyes on it at that time. I just saw what looked like a large black ape. And I've seen plenty of black bear in my time in the mountains. And at Fort Drum and other places. And this was not a black bear. This looked like a large... I didn't know what it was. Honestly, it looked like a giant ape, but it was pitch black. It had 2 arms and legs. It was standing up and was coming through the swamp straight for me. And I got up when I realized it wasn't a bear and it was coming right at me. And this was in the days before the internet, just before the internet. Or cell phones. So I didn't have a cell phone to take a picture either. 1987. I never heard of Bigfoot ever at all, ever. Or Sasquatch. There wasn't any internet back then. And I was brand new to this region. So I had no idea what this was. Not a clue. So I hightailed it out of there, got my Jeep, and I left. And I never went back there to camp or to live. So that was the first encounter, and that's where I saw it. Just off Winters Road in the swamp. Coming straight for me. It found me. All right. So that's where it happened the first time. And I can tell you, it was coming at me. It was unnatural. It was coming at me like in a rage. And it was moving things around, and it was a swamp that was coming at me through a swamp. And I stood up, I had a cigarette. Because I sat down on this stone bridge, had a cigarette. It was a hot day out. It was like August. I had a little army shovel with me. I'm like, what the hell is that? And it was coming right at me. Totally black, looked like a giant ape, I thought. That's what I thought. Because I'd never heard of Bigfoot before or any of that. And so I didn't know what to think. I knew it wasn't a bear. I've encountered plenty of bear up close. Black bear. Not in that area. I've never seen one there, but I'm sure they're there. This was not, it was not a bear. So I took off running. I don't think I've ever ran so fast in my life. And I was a good runner. And I fell. I cut my hand on the shovel, I remember. I mean, I was scared. And that took a lot. I didn't run easily. I've had bears at Fort Drum and up in Canada. I've encountered bear and I didn't freak out. This thing was frightening. It really was frightening. And it looked like a gigantic black ape, but kind of weird. Its motions of its arms, it was something very unnatural about it. And it looked very angry. It's like coming right towards me. And flailing its arms. And it was scary. I ran, got my Jeep, drove off, and that's the last night I stayed there. In fact, I didn't go back there. That was it. I found somewhere else to sleep, far away from that place. So that's the first story of Bigfoot in Whitehall, New York. Now, if you look up, Google Bigfoot, Whitehall, New York, you'll see that other people have seen the same thing I'm describing. Black with glowing red eyes. And the glowing red eyes, I'm telling you folks, it's not an ape. Now, the second time it found me, you're not gonna believe me, but I'm telling you the truth, what happened. I mean, I wet my whistle here. So I didn't go back to that place, and the closest it got to me, I'd say it got about 25, not quite, maybe 50 feet away from me. I'm not good at estimating. About stone's throw for me, a little closer than that, and it was closing. I ran off. My Jeep wasn't too far away, and I drove off. And it was broad daylight, sunny day, summer. All right, so I finally got paid, and I got an apartment. I got a place on Champlain Road, and here's a little video on that where it found me the second time. It came into my house. It found me. It was obviously looking for me. And this happened, it seemed like it might have happened a month or so. I'm not sure. No more than 2 months after the first time is when it found me the second time. So here's that little video with map. Okay, I was staying on Champlain Avenue. Right there. Well, second. And I was staying towards the end of it. I'm not going to tell you my address, but I was staying roughly right there. And it came in, this was all a swampy area here. It was just a vast swamp, probably still is. I don't know. But when I lived there, this was a swamp. Nothing but a swamp. And it came in through my back door. So it must have come, I figured it traveled through the swamp. I think it was about 2 or 3 miles from where I first saw it. And it found me, it came in through my back door, and my backyard was a swamp. So it must have come through the swamp at night, and it came right into my house. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy, but I'm telling you the truth. And it's so wild, I'm not surprised that most people don't believe me, except for family members and friends who know me well. They know that I would not make this up. So, yes, it found me the second time, and it came through the swamp, into my backyard, and into my house at night, about 3 in the morning. And I'll tell the rest of that off the map. Yep. So it was about 3 in the morning, And I'm going to tell you most of this story, not all of it. This really happened to me. It was very traumatic. I couldn't even talk about it for about 5 years without getting shaky, real shaky. It really, really traumatized me quite a lot. And it's been so long. This happened in 1987. It's been so long I can talk about it now, and I don't live near the place. I would never want to encounter this thing again. It was around 3 in the morning, and I was upstairs. That's where my bedroom was. I lived alone. Again, I was a career NCO. I didn't do drugs at all. No drugs. I smoked cigarettes, I think at that time, or whatever that's worth. I drank beer then, but I didn't drink a whole lot of beer. I mean, I drank maybe 2, maybe 3 beers. That's it. I didn't get really drunk or anything. And this particular night when this happened, I came home from work, and I could walk to my armory. It was right close to the armory. But I woke up. Something happened before that. Before I woke up laying on my back on my bed upstairs. Again, I lived alone in this place, and I was weeping, crying. Tears were flooding out of my eyes. I mean, unnatural weeping, and both eyes just streaming, really soaked my pillow. And I hadn't had a bad dream. I just felt this intense dread. And I'm laying there, and I couldn't move. It was like night tremors, but it moves on beyond night tremors. This is just the beginning. And I felt this dread, and something had possessed my body, something evil, to where I couldn't move. And my eyes were open, and I'm terrified. And tears are streaming out of my eyes, and I'm thinking to myself, what's happening to me? What's happening to me? What is this? And I felt this immense, inhuman dread and fear. Negative. And I sensed this thing at this time. I sensed where it came from. It comes from an underworld. It lives in a dark place in an underworld, not in our world. When it had me like that, I could sense where this thing comes from. More like demonic, I would say. More on that, you'll see. But I didn't know what to think, and I couldn't move, and tears were streaming off my face. And there was more to this story than I'm telling you. But I'm just going to tell you this part. And then bang, I heard my back door that opens into my backyard in a vast swamp. I figured it must have come up through the swamp, found my place, and come right into my back door into my kitchen. And the door slammed open with a force. And when that happened, I could move again. It released me, and I could hear, I'm like, what the hell's going on? I thought a crazy guy had broken into my house. Again, I wasn't thinking Bigfoot. I'd never even heard of Bigfoot at this point. The internet wasn't around yet. So I heard it walking through my kitchen, if you could call it walking, because the footsteps were very mechanical, like it would go, and it shook the place. And I could hear it clearly because I'm right above it. And I heard my chairs getting thrown. I heard furniture getting thrown. Like when it came to furniture, it didn't walk around the furniture. It threw the furniture. I could hear my furniture getting tossed around, coffee table getting tossed, and I could hear it. And it's coming to the spiral staircase that leads right up to my room and nowhere else. And it donk, and I'm like, oh my God. I thought I had to do something. I had a baseball bat underneath my bed for home defense. I said, it's gonna come up the stairs. I figured it was some crazy guy. I didn't know anybody. I think I'd lived in that town maybe 3 months at this point. 3 months I'd been there, 3 or 4 months. I didn't know anybody. And the few people I knew were family men, and they wouldn't have done this at 3 in the morning. come in my back door. Nobody used the back door. The yard was just really a backyard and a swamp. Nobody went, I didn't even go back there. And I was going to get at the top of the stairs, you know, where it couldn't see me. As soon as it came up, I was going to whack this intruder in the shins, then follow up with a 1-2, you know, whack, bump, bump. Not to kill anybody, but to incapacitate. And I was getting into position to do this when it stopped walking. At this point, it wasn't walking, it glided up, it was floating. And I saw it because it wasn't really dark in my room. There was a street light in front of my place, and my room was pretty well lit up through the windows, honestly. And I saw this black, giant black humanoid figure. And I'm 6 foot tall, and it stood a little taller than me. Big, hulking shoulders. I couldn't see any features, and it just glided up the stairs, and as soon as I saw it, I just froze. I couldn't move. I was petrified in fear, but it like had me to where I couldn't move. I couldn't move. I just had the ball bat, I just stand there. I couldn't move. And it glided up, and it stopped this close in front of me. The Bigfoot in Whitehall. It stopped this close in front of me. And it was a little taller than me. And I couldn't move. I was scared is not the word for it. Scared does not do those feelings justice. I've done some scary things in the Army. I've done some really scary things in the Army. Before I even went there, I was a paratrooper and did a lot of things around the world. I've never been. The kind of scared that I was with this thing is something different. It permeates you. Like radiation, negativity, hatred, evilness. I mean, it is really bad. And what's going on with my candles? And it had glowing red eyes. That's the only features I could see. It had, the eyes looked kind of an orangish red, kind of almond shaped, and they were glowing red. Now there's no animal that has glowing red. Not reflecting red off some lights. No, they were glowing red. Like charcoal, hot embers, red. And I gotta go back to hot embers. When I sensed the place that it came from, when it had possession of me briefly, didn't have full possession, but had possession of my body. It came from a dark underworld, but there are flames too. It came from hell, quite frankly. That's what I think. More on that. I couldn't move, and it didn't do anything. I never felt it was going to kill me. I felt like it was feeding off my fear. Like if it could laugh, it would laugh at me in a bad way. This thing was evil. And I thought this has to be, I couldn't move, it had me captive. I said this has to be a bad dream. And I closed my eyes and I screamed, yelled, ah! Figured I'd wake myself up, it was a dream, and I opened my eyes, no, it wasn't a dream. I'm still standing there, my arms at my side. I don't know if I was holding the ball bat or if I dropped it at this point. I don't remember, honestly. And this thing's still in front of me. Glowing red eyes, big black hulking figure. I didn't see any fur. Not saying there wasn't any, but I just saw a big black hulking figure, humanoid with glowing red eyes. Its arms were at its side like this. It never moved its arms that I saw. It's just standing there in front of me. Stunk. It was awful. And I thought this has to be a bad dream. And it wasn't releasing me. And my hands were towards my side and I pinched myself real hard. I could move my fingers real hard. Figured I'd wake myself up. No, I was wide awake. This was happening. I yelled again. I yelled, and it didn't make any difference. It didn't go away. Nothing changed. And here's where this ended. I yelled out, Jesus! Jesus Christ, help me! And as soon as I said that, it vanished. As soon as I yelled out, Jesus Christ, help me, Jesus, it vanished completely. And I went, oh. I went back to my bed and I sat down on it. And I said some prayers and went to sleep. Got up in the morning and I felt traumatized. I felt like I'd been emotionally through the ringer. And I said, what the hell was that last night? I said, it must have been some weird dream. And so I went in the bathroom, I got cleaned up, shaved, put on my Army uniform, and went out to go walk to work at the armory. When I went downstairs, my furniture was thrown all over the place and my back door was open. And the furniture, chairs, and coffee table were thrown upside down, moved across the room. And the back door was open, just like I heard. And I said, oh my God, this really happened. And I sat down on the couch and I felt really shaken up at that point. And I said some more prayers and I went to work. And when I got to work, there were a few other guys there. We always sat and had coffee and joked around for about 15 minutes, and we'd go to work. You know, we'd go in the coffee break room and have some coffee and just talk and joke. And I went in there, instead of going, I was so shaken up, like emotionally really traumatized, that I didn't want to talk to anybody. I just walked past everybody, went straight to my office. And my buddy Rod, who was a clerk, he was an E5 sergeant, he said, hey, what's wrong with Shank? What's wrong? I said, I had a rough night last night. I don't want to talk about it. And I went to my office and he said, something's wrong with Shank. I guess it really showed. And he followed me in there and he kept pressing me, what's wrong, man? What happened to you? And I guess it really showed on me. And I told him what happened. And you know what he said? This is the first time I ever heard of Bigfoot in my life. He said, oh, you encountered Bigfoot. He's like, welcome to Whitehall. I'm like, what? Yeah, they see this thing there periodically. Big black figure with glowing red eyes. He called the other guys in that were from that town, lived there forever. Tell them what you just told me. And I felt foolish. I told them, they're like, welcome to Whitehall. And they all went back to work like it was, and I'm like, this is crazy. So that's that. And then I never heard of this. It was a little while later, they came out with, in a local paper, Whitehall paper, where there was a guy researching it, and he wanted to talk to people who had encountered this at the library. He was writing a book on it in Whitehall, a guy named Paul Bartholomew. He was about my age then. I didn't want to tell anybody this. You know, I was a training sergeant there. And my story is pretty wild. I didn't just see Bigfoot. Bigfoot came into my house. Bigfoot found me twice. It found me where I was living in the woods. I took off, and then 2 months later or so, it found me where I moved into the village and came into my house and confronted me. So I didn't tell anybody about it because I didn't want people to laugh at me, or I didn't want that kind of publicity. But some years later, I got hold of this man. I saw something on TV that he made, Whitehall's Bigfoot. I got hold of him and talked to him on the phone and told him everything that I just told you. There's more to the story I did not tell you. There's more. Kind of embarrassing, some of it. And he said, no, I don't think you're crazy. I believe you. Because he'd interviewed some other people. He said there was one other guy, the guy that ran the country club golf course. He encountered it when he was out working on his golf course. And he said he froze. He couldn't move either. Just like I said, I couldn't move. This guy said as soon as he saw the red eyes, he couldn't move. It freezes you. Not just him, but his dog couldn't move either. And that guy thought, like I thought, that it was paranormal, probably demonic. And I'm telling you, I know, it's demonic. And it's evil, whatever you want to call it. It's evil. It's not human. It's not of this realm. It doesn't have flesh and blood like us. That's why they never can find bones or Bigfoot guano poop. They can't find anything of it. They find some footprints down in, because when it materializes here, yes, it can walk and it can float. And when it puts its foot down, it puts its foot down really hard. It shook my house with each step, and then it just glided up the stairs. Didn't walk. And when I said Jesus Christ, it vanished. It completely vanished. It went back to wherever it came from. You know, it might be what we call a dimension traveler. I think, you know, whatever you think. But it went back to its own wherever. It could not endure the name of Jesus Christ. And I had a guy get hold of me, because I wrote a book on this about 10 years ago. Not quite. And the guy read my book, and he had this happen to him also. And he went to great lengths to get hold of me, to talk to me, because he had the same thing happen to him, and he also called out to Jesus, and it vanished. When he called out to Jesus Christ, it vanished. And so that's it. It found me twice. And why did it look me up? I've seen God's angels. God has spoken to me throughout my life. And I've seen spirits and things. And these things happen to me. And I think I was going to church a lot when this happened. I was a very devout Christian. I still am. And I just think it saw me as a high priority target to mess with. One of God's children. So, but you know what? Jesus Christ had my back on it. So that's my two stories on how Bigfoot found me in Whitehall, New York. And they've got statues to it, Sasquatch crossings, festivals, and I'm telling you, they are celebrating a demonic entity. They want to believe that it's some kind of like gorilla, you know, that for some reason nobody's found, unless they just see it. Like police have seen it, and look it up, Whitehall's Bigfoot. You know, periodically it gets seen, but nobody's ever encountered it like I did. Nobody. Nobody that I'm aware of, not even close. So they're celebrating a demonic entity when they celebrate this thing. And they call it Bigfoot because what do you call it, you know? I imagine it has big feet. I don't know what the other Bigfoot or Sasquatch or what they are around the world. I couldn't tell you. I can only tell you what this was, or what it is in Whitehall. And they're never going to find it when they're looking for it. And if they ever do, they're going to wish that they hadn't. Because it was more powerful than me. For sure. It's not stupid. It's very powerful. If it's a demonic entity, it's a fallen angel. And of sorts. And it can walk, float, materialize, disappear. Has glowing red eyes. And gives off, it will make you feel beyond afraid. Such an intense dread that you won't be able to move. I guess it would be like an animal that's so scared it can't move. It's pretty bad. So that's Bigfoot finding me twice, because I figure I'm a high priority target for it. But I'll tell you, the beer, I think I got wax in it, but I probably drank worse things in my beer. Finding Bigfoot beer is pretty good beer. I like this. It's still got a head on it. I've been sitting here blabbing for a while. It's pretty well carbonated. There's pretty decent lacing, as you can see. I'm going to tell you something. if you ever encounter something demonic, you better know the Lord Jesus Christ. He defeated them on the cross. He won the whole war right there on the cross. The spoken name of Jesus Christ, spoken, is very effective. It's what you want to do. Because it worked there, it made it go away, and I had another demonic attack not that long ago. I don't know about Bigfoot, I didn't see it, but its presence. And I said the Lord's Prayer out loud, and that just made it angry. I heard it. It said, "There is no God." Right, like in my ear. And I said, "I'm a follower of Jesus Christ." And when I did that, it left. Which makes me feel good to know that Jesus Christ has my back on these things. And these things don't happen all the time, but if they do, remember what I said. And you should know Jesus Christ. Who liked to have a beer? Jesus liked to have a drink with his friends. I don't know that he overdid it, but he wouldn't mind sitting here and having a beer with me, I'm sure. He was even ridiculed by some because they said he liked to have a drink, which was beer, most likely not wine. But you need to know Christ, Jesus Christ. And so that's my advice to you from Bigfoot finding me. Not once, but twice. Why did it seek me out to the point that it found me where I live and came in right into my place? I only like to think it's because I'm with God, a child of God, a warrior for God, and that's way I'm a high priority target. That's what I think. I like to think that. I want to finish this beer. I'm going to blow these candles out. Yeah, I made these candles just for this. Just for this opportunity to tell my story. And check out this actually pretty good Imperial Stout. Finding Bigfoot by Beer Tree Brewing is very good. You're going to pay top dollar for it. But if you don't mind paying, $20 for 4 pints, you will like this. This is pretty good. It doesn't have that bourbon barrel stuff. I have yet to have a bourbon barrel Imperial Stout that I like, because it tastes like bourbon. And if I wanted bourbon, I'd be drinking bourbon, not stout. So, it doesn't, it's just straight up stout. Barley, hops, and water. Finally went flat. It took it a while. It's pretty good. This is a good one. I wouldn't say it's my favorite. There's really not a lot of Imperial Stouts. Well, there are a lot, but it's kind of hard to find a lot of them. I live in central New York. I'm not too far out in the wilderness. I think my favorite Imperial Stout is Rasmussen by North Coast Brewing. Rasputin Imperial Stout by, it's either North Coast or Northwest Brewing. That's, I think, my favorite Imperial Stout. After that, it would probably be Narwhal by Sierra Nevada. And after that, right here, what's in my mug, I'd say. No, all right, here we go. To the murky, murky depths. Yeah, get some.